Madison Burke froze, her hand suspended in midair, heart pounding against her ribs. The coloring book page stared back at her like an accusation, a crude crayon drawing of a woman bleeding behind prison bars. 8-year-old Sophia sat across the table, tiny fists clenched in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. For 3 months, the newly adopted girl hadn't spoken a single word to her new mother. Now Madison understood why. The kitchen door swung open as Rebecca Collins entered with a tray of snacks, her smile evaporating at the sight of Madison's horrified expression. The truth was hiding in plain sight, drawn in the desperate strokes of a child's crayon. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where are you watching from today and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. Hit subscribe for more riveting stories you can't miss. Madison Burke's sneakers squeaked against the polished hardwood floors of the Collins residence as she followed Rebecca through the immaculate suburban home. Spring sunshine spilled through large windows, illuminating framed family photos that lined the hallway, Rebecca and her husband smiling from vacation spots around the world. What Madison noticed immediately, not a single photo included their newly adopted daughter. "Sophia is adjusting," Rebecca explained, tucking a strand of honey blonde hair behind her ear. The worry lines around her mouth deepened. The adoption agency said it might take time. It's been 3 months, and she hasn't spoken a single word to me. Madison nodded, clutching her child psychology textbook closer to her chest. At 22, she wasn't just babysitting to pay for college. She was gaining practical experience for her future career. Children who had experienced trauma were exactly what she studied. "Sometimes silence is how kids protect themselves," Madison said gently. "It gives them control when they feel they have none." Rebecca's shoulders slumped. "I've tried everything. Books, toys, her favorite foods, according to her file anyway. It's like living with a ghost." They stopped at a bedroom door decorated with a wooden plaque reading Sophia in flowing script. Rebecca knocked softly before pushing it open. A small figure sat cross-legged on the bed, back perfectly straight, dark hair falling in a curtain around her face. Sophia Collins, formerly Sophia Petrov according to the adoption papers, didn't look up when they entered. Her delicate fingers moved methodically, arranging colored pencils by shade. "Sophia, this is Madison. She'll be watching you while I work on Tuesdays and Thursdays." Rebecca's voice was bright but strained. "She's studying to help children, just like Dr. Williams, who you talk to every week." Madison stepped forward, crouching to the girl's eye level without invading her space. "Hi, Sophia. I like your color arrangement. The way you've created a perfect gradient from yellow to orange is really impressive." For just a flash, Sophia's eyes flickered up, deep brown, intelligent, wary before returning to her task. But that momentary connection sent a bolt of hope through Madison. During the house tour that followed, Madison noticed telling details. Sophia's room was pristine, not a normal 8-year-old space. No drawings on the walls. No stuffed animals with clearly loved worn spots. Everything looked staged, untouched, like Sophia was refusing to settle in. "The agency said she was found in an orphanage in Eastern Europe," Rebecca whispered as they stood in the kitchen. "Her file was incomplete. They told us her mother died in an accident, father unknown." Her voice cracked. "I just want to give her a good life." Madison nodded, but something felt off. In her child development classes, they discussed the ethics of international adoptions, the sometimes murky paperwork, the children caught in systems with too little oversight. As Rebecca prepared to leave for her meeting, Madison spotted something tucked beneath a stack of mail, the edge of what looked like an official document with a seal she didn't recognize. Before she could get a better look, Rebecca gathered the papers, sliding them into a drawer. "Emergency numbers are on the fridge," Rebecca said. "I should be back by 6. If you can just get her to eat something, I'd consider it a victory." Madison watched Rebecca leave, then turned toward the silent challenge waiting in the living room. Something wasn't right in this house, and Madison had always been too curious for her own good. Madison found Sophia exactly where they'd left her, still arranging colored pencils on her bed. The girl hadn't moved an inch, like a small soldier maintaining her post. "Are you hungry?" Madison asked, receiving silence in return. "Maybe we could draw something together? I'm not very good, but I bet you could teach me a thing or two." Nothing. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. Madison didn't push. Instead, she sat on the floor nearby and pulled out her phone, pretending to scroll while actually observing Sophia in her peripheral vision. The girl's shoulders remained tensed, her breathing measured, deliberate. This wasn't mere shyness. This was vigilance. After 20 minutes of coexistence, Madison noticed something. Whenever she put down her phone to flip through her textbook, Sophia's eyes would dart to the colorful diagrams, lingering on the pages before snapping back to her own task. The girl was curious, but hiding it. "I brought something you might like," Madison said casually, reaching into her backpack. She pulled out a brand new coloring book, one filled with elaborate patterns rather than childish cartoons. "My professor says art can help us express things when words feel too hard." For the first time, Sophia's hands paused in their methodical sorting. Her eyes remained downcast, but her body angled slightly toward Madison, the smallest possible indication of interest. "I'll just leave it here." Madison placed the book on the edge of the bed. No pressure. The afternoon crept by. Madison read her textbook, occasionally making a comment about something interesting, never expecting a response. She was playing the long game. After an hour, she stood up, stretching. "I'm going to make a snack. Would you like anything?" Silence. In the kitchen, Madison opened cupboards, familiarizing herself with the space. The house felt too perfect, like a model home, not a place where people actually lived. She found crackers and cheese, arranging them on a plate. When she turned around, she nearly dropped it. Sophia stood in the doorway, the coloring book clutched in her hands. "Hey there," Madison said softly, trying to hide her surprise. "Would you like to color at the table? I could join you." Sophia didn't respond verbally, but she moved to the table and sat, placing the coloring book in front of her. Progress. Madison set down the snack plate and retrieved colored pencils from Sophia's room. When she returned, the girl had opened the book to an intricate mandala pattern. Madison sat across from her, careful to give her space. They colored in silence for nearly an hour. Sophia's technique was remarkable for her age, precise, controlled, with sophisticated color choices. Madison occasionally commented on the beauty of a particular section, receiving only concentrated silence in return. When Madison reached for a blue pencil at the same moment as Sophia, their hands nearly touched. The girl jerked back as if burned. "Sorry about that," Madison said casually. "You go ahead." As Sophia reached for the pencil, Madison noticed something else, a flash of yellowed bruising around her wrist, mostly healed, but still visible beneath her sleeve. Madison kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced. That injury wasn't in any of the paperwork Rebecca had shown her. Curious about what else the girl had been coloring, Madison gently asked, "May I see some of your other drawings?" Sophia didn't respond, but she didn't protest when Madison carefully turned back to previous pages in the book. The first few showed typical patterns, beautifully colored. Then Madison turned another page and felt her blood turn to ice. There, in violent crayon strokes, was a crude drawing of a woman behind bars. Red crayon marks streaked the woman's face like blood. The woman's mouth was open in what looked like a scream. Madison's hand flew to her mouth. She looked up at Sophia, who was now staring directly at her for the first time, eyes wide, challenging, desperate. The kitchen door swung open as Rebecca returned home, a tray of fresh-baked cookies in her hands. She stopped dead, registering Madison's horrified expression and the drawing between them. "What's going on?" Rebecca asked, her voice suddenly tight with alarm. "It's just a drawing," Madison said quickly, not wanting to alarm Sophia by reacting too strongly, but her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't random scribbling, it was too specific, too emotional. Rebecca set down the cookie tray and moved closer, peering over Madison's shoulder. Her sharp intake of breath said everything. "Sophia, sweetie," Rebecca's voice wavered as she crouched beside the girl. "What is this drawing about? You can tell us." Sophia's face hardened, her gaze dropping to her lap where her hands twisted together. The silence in the kitchen grew heavier, more charged than before. "Maybe we should talk about this later," Madison suggested quietly, closing the coloring book. Something told her that pushing Sophia now in front of Rebecca would only make her retreat further. Rebecca nodded stiffly, disappointment etched across her features. "I made your favorite chicken for dinner, Sophia. Why don't you wash up?" The girl slid from her chair and padded silently from the room, leaving the adults in uncomfortable silence. "Has she drawn things like this before?" Madison asked once Sophia was out of earshot. Rebecca shook her head. "She barely touches the art supplies I bought her. I've never seen her draw anything." She sank into a chair. "What does it mean?" Madison chose her words carefully. "It could be many things. Children often process complex emotions through art. But what?" I noticed some bruising on her wrist. Older bruising. Rebecca's eyes widened. "The adoption agency mentioned she had some injuries when she arrived at the orphanage. They said she'd fallen." She hesitated. "Do you think someone hurt her?" "I think," Madison said slowly, "that there might be more to Sophia's story than was shared with you." After dinner, which Sophia merely pushed around her plate, Madison helped the girl get ready for bed while Rebecca cleaned up. The entire evening had passed in strained silence.
"I'll see you on Thursday, Sophia," Madison said,
tucking the blanket around the small figure. "Maybe we can color some more then." As Madison turned to leave, a tiny hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. Madison froze, looking back at Sophia, whose eyes were wide with what could only be described as fear. "What is it?" Madison whispered. Sophia's lips parted. After 3 months of silence, her voice emerged like a rusty hinge, barely audible, hoarse from disuse. "They hurt my real mommy." 5 words. Then silence again, as if the effort had exhausted her. Sophia released Madison's wrist and turned to face the wall. Madison stood perfectly still, processing what she just heard. The implications sent chills down her spine. She wanted to ask more questions, but Sophia had clearly given all she could for now. This fragile trust was too valuable to break. "I hear you," Madison whispered, "and I believe you." Downstairs, she found Rebecca in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. "She spoke to me," Madison said without preamble. Rebecca dropped a plate. It clattered but didn't break. "What? What did she say?" Madison took a deep breath. She said, "They hurt my real mommy." Rebecca's face drained of color. She gripped the counter for support. "That's impossible. Her mother is dead. That's what all the paperwork said." "I think we need to look into her background more carefully," Madison said. "What agency handled the adoption?" Rebecca moved to a drawer, pulling out a folder. "Global Family Connect. They specialize in Eastern European adoptions." She spread several documents across the counter. Everything was in order. We paid extra for expedited processing. Madison scanned the papers. Sophia Petrov, age 8, from a small village in Moldova. Mother deceased in an accident. No known relatives. The documentation was sparse, with several sections conspicuously vague. "May I take photos of these?" Madison asked. "I have a friend in law school who specializes in international law. He might notice something we're missing." Rebecca hesitated. I don't know. Our adoption lawyer said everything was legal. Rebecca, Madison said gently. Sophia spoke for the first time to tell me something happened to her mother. Don't you want to know what she meant? After a long pause, Rebecca nodded. Take the copies. Just be discreet. My husband and I went through so much to bring her home. As Madison photographed the documents, something caught her eye, a small logo in the corner of one paper, a stylized mountain with the letters BMG underneath. It seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. At home that night, Madison couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Sophia's drawing, the woman behind bars, the red crayon marks like blood, and those 5 whispered words, "They hurt my real mommy." She sent the document photos to her friend James, asking if he noticed anything unusual. Then she opened her laptop and began researching Moldova, international adoptions, and finally the logo she'd spotted. At 2 a.m., she found it. BMG, Balkan Mining Group, a corporation that had been in the news 2 years earlier for controversial operations in Eastern Europe. There had been protests about environmental damage, allegations of corruption. Madison dug deeper, finding news articles about villages displaced by mining operations. One photo made her sit up straight, protesters holding signs in Moldovan, and in the background, a woman who looked strikingly like an adult version of Sophia, holding a bullhorn. The caption identified her as Elena Petrov, an environmental activist who had disappeared after leading protests against the mining company. The article was dated 18 months ago, around the time Sophia would have entered the orphanage. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from James. "These adoption papers are irregular. Big sections missing. Who handled this? Call me ASAP." Madison stared at her discoveries. A knot forming in her stomach. She wasn't just helping a silent child anymore, she was pulling on threads that powerful people might have very deliberately tied off. But somewhere out there might be a mother looking for her daughter, and Sophia, trapped in her silence, was asking for help, the only way she knew how. Madison made a decision. She would be late for class tomorrow. She had a mysterious corporation to investigate. Morning light streamed through the blinds as Madison hunched over her laptop, empty coffee cups scattered around her small apartment. She'd barely slept, tumbling down one research rabbit hole after another. James had called at 6 a.m., his legal mind already dissecting the adoption irregularities. "Expedited international adoptions are red flags," he explained, "especially from regions with documented corruption. And look at this signature block. The authorizing judge's name is smudged conveniently illegible." Madison rubbed her eyes. "So what are we saying? That Sophia was taken from her mother?" "I'm saying someone wanted this adoption to happen quickly without too many questions." James paused. The timing aligns with when that activist, Elena Petrov, disappeared from public view. The resemblance between her and Sophia is striking. But why? Why take a child from her mother and place her for international adoption? Power, control, punishment. James's voice hardened. If Elena was causing trouble for powerful interest, taking her child would be the ultimate way to silence her. Madison thought of Sophia's silent rebellion in her new home, refusing to speak, to connect, to settle in. It wasn't just trauma. It was protest. The only form of resistance available to her. "I need to find out more about Elena Petrov," Madison decided, "and I need to gain Sophia's trust." 2 days later, Madison returned to the Collins home for her Thursday babysitting shift. She brought a new coloring book, carefully selected, this one with pictures of women in powerful poses, astronauts, doctors, leaders. Rebecca looked exhausted when she opened the door. "She had nightmares last night," she confided in a low voice, screaming in a language I couldn't understand. When I tried to comfort her, she pushed me away. Madison nodded sympathetically. "Has she spoken again?" "Not a word." Rebecca gathered her purse and car keys. "There's lunch in the fridge. I'll be back by 4. My husband's flying home from his business trip tonight, so we'll have dinner as a family." Once Rebecca left, Madison found Sophia in her room, sitting by the window watching birds in the backyard. The girl's posture changed subtly when Madison entered, a slight straightening of her spine, a tilt of her head. Recognition. "I brought something new," Madison said, setting down the coloring book, "and I learned something interesting I wanted to share with you." Sophia didn't respond, but her eyes tracked Madison's movements as she sat on the floor, keeping her distance. "I saw a picture of a woman who looks a lot like you," Madison said gently. "Her name is Elena Petrov. Is that a name you know?" Sophia's small body went rigid. Her fingers clutched the windowsill so tightly her knuckles turned white. "It's okay," Madison soothed. "You don't have to say anything, but if you want to show me, you could draw something." Madison opened the new coloring book, flipping to a blank page at the back. She placed it on the floor between them, along with colored pencils, then moved back to give Sophia space. For 10 long minutes, neither moved. Then, like a bird cautiously approaching crumbs, Sophia slid off the window seat and knelt by the book. Her small hand reached for a pencil. Madison held her breath as Sophia began to draw. First, a simple house, then a woman with long dark hair like Sophia's own. The girl added a garden, trees, mountains in the background, a peaceful scene. Then her strokes became more aggressive. She grabbed a black pencil and drew dark clouds, angry scribbles descending on the house. Men in uniforms. What looked like machinery. The woman, presumably Elena, stood with her arms outstretched, as if protecting the house, the land. "Were those men trying to take your home?" Madison asked softly. Sophia nodded, still drawing. She added another figure, small, clearly herself, holding her mother's hand. "Was this in Moldova, where you lived with your mother?" Another nod. Sophia's breathing quickened as she drew more officials with papers, her mother arguing, protests with signs. Her drawings were simple but conveyed unmistakable meaning, a community fighting against some threat. Then came the most disturbing scene. Men in uniforms taking her mother away. Sophia drew herself reaching out, being held back by another official. Tears fell silently down Sophia's cheeks as she drew, splashing onto the paper. "They took your mother," Madison whispered, "and then they took you to the orphanage." Sophia finally looked up, eyes swimming with tears, and nodded once. "Is your mother still alive? Do you know?" The girl's face crumpled. She shrugged helplessly, then picked up a red pencil and circled back to the image of her mother being taken away, pressing so hard the pencil tip broke. "You don't know what happened to her," Madison translated. "That must be very scary." Sophia's shoulders shook with silent sobs. Madison wanted desperately to comfort her, but knew better than to touch her without permission. Instead, she slid a tissue across the floor. "Sophia," Madison said carefully, "I want to help you find out what happened to your mother, but I need to know more. Was there a company, a business, that wanted your village's land? Do you remember a name or a symbol?" Sophia wiped her eyes and turned the paper over. With careful strokes, she drew a mountain shape with letters underneath, the same BMG logo Madison had seen on the adoption documents. Madison's heart raced. "Balkan Mining Group. They were in your village?" Sophia nodded vigorously. "And your mother fought against them?" Another nod, firmer this time. Pride flashed in Sophia's eyes. "Thank you for showing me," Madison said. "You're very brave." That afternoon, while Sophia napped, exhausted from the emotional exertion, Madison photographed the drawings and texted them to James. Then she did something she knew she shouldn't. She searched through the house. Rebecca's home office was immaculate, every folder labeled. Madison found the adoption file in a filing cabinet, more complete than the version Rebecca had shown her. These documents mentioned complicating factors in country of origin and political considerations. One paper caught her eye, a letter from Rebecca's husband's company, Transcontinental Resource Development, confirming they would cover all adoption expenses as part of our Executive Family Benefits Program. At the bottom, a familiar logo appeared alongside the corporate signature. TRD was a parent company of Balkan Mining Group. Madison's blood ran cold. Was this coincidence or something more sinister? Did Rebecca's husband know the connection between his company and Sophia's past? She carefully replaced everything and closed the cabinet. When she turned around, Rebecca stood in the doorway. "What are you doing in here?" Her voice was dangerously quiet. Madison's mind raced. Sophia had a breakthrough today, she said, deciding honesty was her only option. She drew pictures of what happened before she was adopted. "I was looking for more information about her background." Rebecca's face paled. What? What did she draw? Her mother being taken away by officials. Their village being threatened by a mining company, Balkan Mining Group. Madison watched Rebecca carefully. "Did you know your husband's company owns BMG?" Rebecca sank into her office chair. TRD is massive. They have subsidiaries everywhere. Michael handles corporate expansion. He found the adoption agency through business contacts. Her eyes widened with dawning horror. "You don't think—" "I don't know what to think," Madison said gently. "But Sophia believes her mother was taken because she protested against BMG. And then Sophia ended up adopted by an executive from the same corporation. That's impossible." Rebecca shook her head vehemently. "Michael would never. We wanted a child for years. Our adoption file was open for any country. It was coincidence that Sophia came from Moldova." "Was it?" Madison asked. "The adoption happened very quickly. Almost no background information. Expedited processing." Rebecca stood abruptly. "I think you should leave. You're making unfounded accusations about my family." "What about Sophia's family?" Madison pressed. Her mother might still be alive, imprisoned somewhere for standing against a mining operation. "Don't you want to know the truth?" "The truth," Rebecca's voice cracked, "is that I've given that little girl everything. A beautiful home, the best doctors, all the love I have, and you want to tear it all apart based on a child's drawing?" A small sound from the doorway made them both turn. Sophia stood there, clutching her drawings, eyes wide with understanding beyond her years. She'd heard everything. "Sophia." Rebecca stepped toward her, but the girl backed away, shaking her head. In a clear, firm voice that belied her months of silence, Sophia said, "I want my real mommy." Rebecca flinched, as if struck. Tears welled in her eyes. Madison knelt to Sophia's level. "We're going to try to find out what happened to her, I promise." As Madison gathered her things to leave, her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Found something big. Elena Petrov was transferred to immigration detention in the U.S. 6 months ago, seeking asylum, then disappeared from the system. Call me now." Outside on the porch, Madison turned to Rebecca, who looked shell-shocked. "Your husband comes home tonight, right?" Rebecca nodded numbly. "Ask him what he knows about Elena Petrov," Madison said. "Really look at his face when you say her name." "And then what?" Rebecca whispered. "Then you decide what kind of person you want to be," Madison answered. "Someone who benefits from injustice or someone who fights it." As Madison walked to her car, she felt eyes on her back. Looking up, she saw a dark sedan parked across the street, a man inside watching the house. When he noticed Madison staring, he started the engine and drove away. Something much bigger than a troubled adoption was unfolding, and Madison was now right in the middle of it. The next morning, Madison's phone rang at 6 a.m. Rebecca's voice came through, tight with urgency.
"Can you meet me?"
"Not at the house. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street, corner cup. Is everything okay? Is Sophia? Just meet me, please." Rebecca hung up. An hour later, Madison found Rebecca huddled in a back booth, sunglasses hiding her eyes despite the dimly lit interior. When she removed them, Madison gasped. Rebecca's left eye was swollen, a purple bruise blooming across her cheekbone. "What happened?" Madison slid into the seat across from her. "I asked Michael about Elena Petrov." Rebecca's voice trembled. He changed. I've never seen him like that."
"He did this to you?"
Madison fought to keep her voice down. Rebecca nodded, hands shaking around her coffee cup. "He said I was meddling in things I didn't understand, that the adoption was arranged through proper channels, and I should be grateful." She drew a shaky breath. "When I pressed about Elena being Sophia's real mother, he grabbed my phone, checked my call history, then he just snapped. Where's Sophia now?" "With my sister. I told her Michael and I had a fight." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I've been such a fool. I wanted a child so badly, I didn't question anything. The expedited process, the lack of background information. Michael handled everything." Madison reached for Rebecca's hand. "Tell me exactly what he said about Elena." "He said she was a troublemaker who spread lies about environmental violations, that she endangered her community with protests." Rebecca swallowed hard. "When I asked if she was still alive, he wouldn't answer directly, just said the situation was resolved." "Rebecca," Madison said carefully, "my law student friend found records indicating Elena was brought to the U.S. 6 months ago seeking asylum. Then she vanished from the immigration system." Rebecca's face drained of color. "Oh my God. Does Michael have connections in immigration?" "His company has government contracts. He golfs with senators." Rebecca pressed her fingers to her temples. "What have I been part of?" Madison took a deep breath. "We need to go to the authorities." "And tell them what? That my husband's company might have imprisoned my adopted daughter's mother? That I suspect my own adoption might be based on corporate retaliation?" Rebecca laughed bitterly. "Who would believe us?" "We have evidence," Madison insisted. "Sophia's drawings. The adoption paperwork irregularities. Your husband's reaction when confronted." Rebecca stared into her coffee. "If what we suspect is true, these people are powerful enough to separate a mother and child across continents. What would stop them from making us disappear too?" The gravity of the situation settled heavily between them. This wasn't just about a traumatized child anymore. It was about corporate power, corruption, and how far people would go to protect their interests. Madison's phone buzzed, a text from James' Elena Petrov case file accessed by federal prosecutor's office yesterday. "Someone else is looking into this. Call me." "We may have an ally," Madison said, showing Rebecca the message. "A federal prosecutor is looking at Elena's case." Something flickered in Rebecca's eyes. Hope, maybe, or determination. "I know what Michael's capable of now," she said quietly, touching her bruised face. "And I know what I have to do." They formulated a plan. Rebecca would return home and act normally, telling Michael she'd overreacted. Meanwhile, Madison and James would compile their evidence and reach out to the federal prosecutor's office anonymously. "What about Sophia?" Madison asked. "I'll keep her with my sister until it's safe," Rebecca said. "She doesn't trust me anyway." Madison squeezed her hand. "She might, once she knows you're trying to find her mother." That afternoon, Madison met James at the law library. He'd compiled a damning timeline. Elena Petrov led protests against BMG's mining operation. BMG's parent company, TRD, filed injunctions against the protesters. Local officials arrested Elena. Weeks later, Sophia entered an orphanage. 6 months after that, Michael Collins, a TRD executive, adopted Sophia through an agency with ties to the same region. It's circumstantial, James cautioned. But the pattern is clear. What about Elena's asylum case? Madison asked. James lowered his voice. According to my source, she was detained at the border, claiming political persecution. Her case looked promising until a corporate letter arrived suggesting she was actually fleeing criminal charges in Moldova. After that, she was scheduled for deportation. Let me guess. The letter came from TRD. James nodded grimly. But here's where it gets interesting. She never made it back to Moldova. The deportation flight manifest doesn't list her. She effectively vanished somewhere between detention and the airport. Madison felt sick. They're holding her somewhere. Or worse, James said quietly. No, Madison shook her head firmly. Sophia believes her mother is alive. I have to believe that too. They worked late into the evening, assembling a dossier of evidence to send to the federal prosecutor. As they walked to their cars, Madison noticed the same dark sedan she'd seen outside the Collins house. It was parked across from the library. James, she whispered, don't look now, but I think we're being watched. This is getting dangerous, Maddie, James said, using her nickname for the first time. Maybe we should hand everything over to the authorities and step back. I promised Sophia I'd help find her mother, Madison replied. I'm not backing out now. When Madison arrived home, her apartment door was slightly ajar, heart pounding. She considered calling the police, but what would she say? Instead, she pushed the door open slowly. Her apartment had been systematically searched. Drawers pulled out, laptop missing, papers scattered. On her kitchen table sat a single sheet of paper with typed text. Stop looking into the Petrov case. You're putting yourself and others in danger. Madison's hands trembled as she called Rebecca. They were in my apartment, she said without preamble. They're watching us. Michael's been on the phone all evening, Rebecca whispered, locked in his study. I heard him mention containment and the girl's babysitter. Where's Sophia? Still at my sister's. Rebecca paused. Madison, there's something else. I found documents in Michael's briefcase, a property deed for a cabin in the mountains, owned by a subsidiary of TRD. It's remote, miles from anywhere. Madison's pulse quickened. A perfect place to hold someone no one is looking for. The deed listed recent utility activations. Someone's using it. Hope surged through Madison. Text me the address. What are you going to do? Find out if Elena Petrov is there. That's insane, Rebecca hissed. These people broke into your apartment. They're dangerous. So is separating a child from her mother, Madison countered. I'll be careful. I'll drive by tonight just to see if there's any activity. No confrontation. After hanging up, Madison paced her violated apartment. She was a psychology student, not an investigator or a hero. She was getting in over her head. But then she thought of Sophia's silence, her desperate drawings, the way she'd finally spoken to demand her real mother. Sometimes the right choice wasn't the safe one. Madison grabbed her car keys and her phone. As she headed for the door, she hesitated, then went back to the kitchen drawer. Inside was the pepper spray her father had insisted she carry when she moved into her own apartment. She'd never thought she'd need it. She slipped it into her pocket and headed out into the night, unaware that a dark sedan was already pulling away from its parking spot to follow her. The mountain roads twisted like black ribbons in Madison's headlights. Her GPS signal faded in and out as pine trees closed around her car like sentinels. The address Rebecca had given her was still 15 miles ahead, deep in national forest land where cell service was a distant memory. Madison gripped the steering wheel tighter, fighting dual waves of doubt and determination. What was she doing out here alone? What if Elena wasn't at the cabin? What if she was? But armed guards protected her. What if this was all an elaborate trap? She checked her rearview mirror for the 100th time. No headlights behind her. At least the sedan wasn't following her anymore. She'd lost it with a series of random turns before hitting the highway. Her phone rang through her car's Bluetooth, making her jump. "James. Where are you?" he demanded without greeting. "I went by your apartment. It's been ransacked." "I'm following a lead," Madison said vaguely. "Rebecca found a remote property owned by her husband's company. I'm just going to drive by, see if there's any activity." "Are you insane?" James's voice rose. "You need to turn around. Now, I've been digging deeper into TRD and Madison. They're not just some mining company. They have private security contracts, former military personnel on staff. This isn't a game." The GPS beeped, indicating she should turn onto an unmarked dirt road. "I have to know if she's there," Madison said quietly. "For Sophia." "At least tell me where you are," James pleaded, "so when you disappear, someone knows where to look." Madison hesitated, then gave him the coordinates. "I'm calling the police," James said. "And tell them what? That you suspect a corporation is illegally detaining a woman in a remote cabin based on a child's drawing and some circumstantial evidence?" Madison sighed. "Just give me an hour. If I don't call you back, then call the police." She ended the call as the dirt road narrowed, branches scraping against her car windows. After another mile, she cut her headlights and crept forward by moonlight alone. Through the trees, she spotted it, a small log cabin with a single light burning in the window. Madison parked off the road, hidden by underbrush, and approached on foot. Her heart hammered so loudly she was certain it would give her away. As she drew closer, she noticed a rugged SUV parked outside and smoke rising from the chimney. Someone was definitely here. Crouching beneath a window, Madison slowly raised her head to peer inside. The cabin was sparsely furnished. A table, 2 chairs, a small kitchenette. A man in a tactical-style jacket sat at the table cleaning a handgun, his back to the window. Madison ducked down, pulse racing. She edged around to another window, this one covered with heavy curtains but slightly parted. Through the narrow gap, she could see into what appeared to be a bedroom, and there, sitting on the edge of a bed, was a woman with long dark hair. Even in profile, the resemblance to Sophia was unmistakable. Elena Petrov was alive. Madison's foot caught on a root as she shifted position. The snap echoed like a gunshot in the quiet forest. Inside, the man's chair scraped back. Madison flattened herself against the cabin wall, holding her breath. The front door creaked open. Heavy footsteps circled the perimeter. Madison remained perfectly still, pressing into the shadows, pepper spray clutched in her trembling hand. The footsteps paused just around the corner from her hiding spot. A flashlight beam swept past, inches from her shoes. Then, miraculously, a distant sound, a branch breaking deeper in the forest, diverted the man's attention. He moved away, following the noise. Madison seized her chance. She slipped to the front door, eased it open, and stepped inside. Elena's head snapped up as Madison entered the bedroom. Fear flashed across her face, followed by confusion when she saw not her captor, but a young woman. "Elena Petrov?" Madison whispered. Elena nodded warily. "I know your daughter, Sophia." Elena's eyes widened. She surged forward, gripping Madison's arms. "Sophia? You've seen my Sophia?" Her accent was thick, but her English clear. "Yes. She's safe, but she misses you terribly." Madison glanced nervously toward the door. "We don't have much time. That man will be back any minute." "Who are you?" Elena demanded. "I'm her babysitter." She was adopted by an American family, but the adoption wasn't legitimate. "We're trying to help you both." Tears filled Elena's eyes. "They told me she was placed in a good orphanage, that she would be better off without a mother who was a criminal." "You're not a criminal," Madison said firmly. "You were fighting for your community against BMG." Elena's expression hardened. Yes, and when they couldn't stop our protests legally, they fabricated charges against me. When that didn't silence the community, they took my daughter. Her voice broke. I have been looking for her since I escaped Moldova. When I came to America seeking asylum, they were waiting for me. Footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Time was up. I'm going to get help, Madison promised, but I need proof you're here. She pulled out her phone, its battery nearly dead, and quickly snapped a photo of Elena. Elena pressed something into Madison's hand. A small carved wooden bird. Give this to Sophia. She will know it's from me. The front door banged open. Madison shoved the bird and her phone into her pocket and ducked into the narrow closet just as the man re-entered the cabin. Who were you talking to? He demanded of Elena. Myself, Elena replied coolly. It gets lonely with only you for company, Mr. Collins. Madison's blood froze. Mr. Collins, Rebecca's husband, was Elena's captor. Through the slats in the closet door, Madison watched Michael Collins approach Elena menacingly. If you're lying to me, a car engine roared outside, headlights sweeping across the windows. Collins cursed and moved to the front room. Madison heard him speaking urgently on a phone. Someone found the location. No, I don't know how. Yes, she's secure, but we need to move her tonight. It was now or never. While Collins was distracted, Madison slipped from the closet and back through the bedroom window. As she raced through the dark forest toward her car, one thought propelled her forward. She had to get this evidence to the authorities before Elena disappeared again. Madison's tires skidded on gravel as she reversed out of her hiding spot, branches scraping against the paint. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. In her pocket, the wooden bird pressed against her thigh, tangible proof that Elena was alive, that Sophia's silent grief was justified. Headlights appeared in her rearview mirror as she hit the main dirt road too close, moving too fast. Come on, she muttered, pushing her ancient Honda to its limits on the winding mountain road. The pursuing vehicle gained ground, a large SUV with blinding high beams, the same one from the cabin. Madison's phone buzzed. James. They're after me, she gasped when she answered. Michael Collins was at the cabin. He's Elena's captor, and he's right behind me. Where are you exactly? James's voice was tense but controlled. About 10 miles down Forestry Route 27, heading toward the highway. Her car fishtailed around a curve. Elena's alive, James. I have proof. I contacted that federal prosecutor. Her name is Diane Warren. She's waiting for us at the federal building downtown. Just get to the highway. I'll meet you at exit 14. The SUV rammed her bumper, sending Madison lurching forward against her seatbelt. Her phone flew into the footwell. James, she cried, unable to reach it while maintaining control of the car. The SUV pulled alongside her. Through the window she could see Michael Collins's face contorted with rage. He swerved toward her, forcing her closer to the edge of the road where a steep drop-off loomed. Madison made a split-second decision. Instead of fighting for space, she hit the brakes hard. The SUV shot ahead, not expecting the maneuver. She cranked the wheel, taking a narrow side road that branched off to the right, a logging route she'd noticed on her way in. It was a gamble. The road was rougher, narrower, but it ran parallel to the main route and eventually connected back to the highway. If she could maintain her lead, she might make it. Behind her, headlights reappeared as Collins realized her move and doubled back. Madison pushed her car faster, bouncing violently over potholes and ruts. The wooden bird fell from her pocket onto the seat beside her. Sophia. She had to do this for Sophia. The highway appeared ahead, its street lamps like a string of pearls in the darkness. Madison merged onto it with squealing tires, the SUV still in pursuit, but farther back now. She weaved through late-night traffic, keeping multiple cars between her and Collins. Exit 14 approached. Madison took it, spotting James's blue Subaru in the gas station lot just off the ramp. She pulled in beside him, practically falling out of her car. "He's right behind me," she gasped. James pulled her into his car just as the SUV barreled past the gas station. "He didn't see us turn in," he said, watching Collins continue down the road. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before he realizes and comes back." Madison pulled out her phone, showing James the photo of Elena. She's being held against her will by Sophia's adoptive father. James stared at the image, then backed his car out of the lot, heading in the opposite direction from where Collins had gone. The federal building is 20 minutes away. Warren is waiting with a team. She's been building a case against TRD for months. Human rights violations, corruption, environmental crimes. Your evidence could be the missing piece. As they drove through the city, Madison clutched the wooden bird in her palm. "Elena carved this for Sophia," she said quietly. She never stopped thinking about her daughter, even while being held prisoner. James glanced at her, his expression softening. "You did something incredibly brave tonight, Madison, and incredibly stupid. I promised Sophia I'd help find her mother. And if Collins had caught you—" Madison shuddered. "I didn't think that far ahead." The federal building loomed ahead, its windows illuminated despite the late hour. As they approached the security gate, Madison felt her adrenaline finally crashing. The reality of what she'd done, confronting a powerful, dangerous man alone in the wilderness, hit her full force. Inside, federal prosecutor Diane Warren waited in a conference room, her sharp eyes taking in Madison's disheveled appearance. "You've had quite a night," she observed, gesturing for Madison to sit. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." For the next hour, Madison recounted the whole story from Sophia's disturbing drawing to finding Elena at the cabin. She handed over the photo, showed Warren the wooden bird, and presented all the research she and James had compiled. Warren listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When Madison finished, the prosecutor leaned back, her expression grave. "We've been investigating transcontinental resource development for 2 years, she revealed. Environmental violations, bribery of foreign officials, worker exploitation, but this keeping a political prisoner on U.S. soil, separating her from her child through fraudulent adoption, this is new territory." "Will you help Elena?" Madison asked. Warren nodded. "I'm dispatching a team to the cabin location now with a warrant for Michael Collins's arrest." She tapped her pen against her notepad. "But I'm concerned about Sophia. If Collins suspects we're closing in, he might try to use her as leverage." Madison straightened. "We need to get to her now." "Where is she?" "With Rebecca's sister," Madison said, already standing. But Rebecca was going home to Michael tonight to avoid raising suspicions. Warren grabbed her phone. "Give me the sister's address. I'll send officers there immediately." As Madison provided the information, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold as she read it. "I know what you did. If you want to see the girl alive again, come alone to 1487 Lakeside Drive. Tell anyone she dies." Madison stared at her phone, blood rushing in her ears.
"What is it?"
James asked, noticing her expression. She wordlessly handed him the phone. His face paled as he read the message, then immediately showed it to Prosecutor Warren. "It's Michael Collins," Madison said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the fear gripping her chest. "He must have gone to Rebecca's sister's house and taken Sophia." Warren was already on her feet, barking orders into her phone. "I need a tactical team at 1487 Lakeside Drive immediately. Possible child abduction. Suspect is Michael Collins, armed and dangerous." She turned to Madison. "We'll handle this. Under no circumstances are you to go there." But Madison was already calculating. The lakeside address was only 10 minutes away. The federal tactical team would take at least 20 to mobilize and arrive. He said to come alone, Madison reminded them. If he sees police, this isn't negotiable, Warren said firmly. Collins is dangerous and desperate. We'll secure the perimeter and negotiate professionally. Madison nodded, appearing to accept the decision, but when Warren stepped out to coordinate with her team, she turned to James. I need your car keys, she whispered. Absolutely not. James grabbed her arm. Madison, this is insane. You're not trained for this. I'm the only one Sophia trusts, Madison insisted. She's been silent for months because she's terrified. Now she's with the man who imprisoned her mother. Think about what that's doing to her. And what happens when you get there? Collins has a gun. Madison took a deep breath. I don't need to confront him. I just need to confirm Sophia is there and safe until the tactical team arrives. I can park down the street, stay on the phone with you the whole time. James's resistance wavered. He knew her well enough by now to recognize the determination in her eyes. The prosecutor will have my law license for this, he muttered, reluctantly handing over his keys. Take this. He pressed a small canister into her hand, military-grade pepper spray, stronger than the one in her pocket, and promise you'll stay back. I promise, Madison said, already moving toward the exit. Call me when the tactical team is 5 minutes out. I'll keep my phone on mute, but connected. The lakeside area was exclusive. Large homes set far apart on winding drives. Madison parked 2 blocks from the address, leaving the lights off. The neighborhood was eerily quiet at this late hour, the massive houses mostly dark. She could see the lake gleaming in the distance, moonlight dancing on its surface. I'm here, she whispered into her phone, keeping the connection open to James. No police presence yet. The house is at the end of the cul-de-sac. She moved quietly through the shadows between properties. 1487 Lakeside was a modern glass and steel structure perched on a small bluff above the water. One light burned inside, the kitchen based on the position. As Madison crept closer, she could make out 2 figures through the window, Michael Collins pacing back and forth, and a smaller silhouette that had to be Sophia sitting rigidly at the table. No sign of Rebecca or her sister. Madison's stomach twisted with guilt. She should have insisted Sophia stay somewhere safer, somewhere Collins couldn't find her. She edged around the property, looking for a better vantage point, careful to stay concealed. At the back of the house, sliding glass doors opened onto a deck overlooking the lake. Through them, Madison could see directly into the kitchen. Michael was on the phone, gesticulating angrily. Sophia sat perfectly still, her face a mask of silent defiance despite the fear that must be coursing through her. Madison's own fear mingled with fierce pride. That little girl was stronger than anyone realized. Suddenly, car headlights swept the front of the house. Madison ducked lower, watching as Rebecca's car pulled into the driveway. She emerged, looking frantic, running toward the front door. Michael met her there, pulling her roughly inside. Through the glass, Madison could see them arguing. Michael's face was twisted with rage as he backed Rebecca against a wall, one hand gripping her throat. Sophia stood from her chair, her tiny body trembling with anger. Madison couldn't wait any longer. She whispered urgently into her phone. Collins is attacking Rebecca. I'm going in through the back deck. Tell the team to hurry. James's protests were cut off as she muted the phone and slipped it into her pocket. She climbed the deck stairs carefully, testing each one to avoid creaks. Through the glass, she could see that Michael's back was to her as he continued threatening Rebecca, who was now crying. Most importantly, the sliding door was partially open to allow the evening breeze, a fatal security oversight. Madison inched it open further, just enough to slip inside. She stayed low, hidden behind the kitchen island. From her position, she could see Sophia clearly now. The girl's eyes widened as she noticed Madison, but remarkably, her expression didn't change. Michael was shouting about betrayal, about how Rebecca had ruined everything by involving the babysitter. "They found the cabin," he snarled. "Do you have any idea what I've risked to keep that woman contained? What it will mean for the company, if this gets out. What it will mean for the company." Rebecca's voice was incredulous, despite her fear. "You kidnapped a woman. You separated her from her child. You hit me when I asked questions, and you're worried about stock prices?" His hand tightened around her throat. "I protected our interests. That activist was going to cost us millions with her environmental propaganda. Taking her child ensured her cooperation, and when she escaped anyway, bringing her here was the only option. Everything I did for us." "No," Rebecca managed. "You did it for yourself." Madison weighed her options. The pepper spray was in her hand, but Michael was too close to Rebecca. If she missed or he reacted violently, Rebecca could be seriously hurt. She needed a distraction. As if reading her thoughts, Sophia suddenly stood up and shouted in a clear, ringing voice, "My mother is alive." It was so unexpected that Michael actually released Rebecca, turning toward the child in shock. Madison seized the moment. She emerged from behind the island and sprinted directly at Collins' pepper spray extended. "Federal agents are on their way," she shouted. "It's over, Michael." Collins reacted with startling quickness, reaching for something in his waistband, a gun. But before he could aim it properly, Madison discharged the pepper spray directly into his face. He roared in pain, the gun clattering to the floor as his hands flew to his burning eyes. Rebecca lunged forward, kicking the weapon away and grabbing Sophia. "Get out!" Madison yelled to them. "Now!" But Collins, blind and raging, lunged in the direction of Madison's voice. His greater size and strength sent them both crashing to the floor. Madison's head struck the hard tile, stars exploding behind her eyes. Collins's hands found her throat, squeezing with desperate fury. "You ruined everything," he growled, his face a contorted, red mask of pain from the pepper spray. Madison clawed at his fingers, but black spots were already dancing in her vision. Dimly she was aware of Rebecca screaming, of the sound of sirens in the distance, too far away. Then something small and fierce barreled into Collins's side. Sophia, her tiny body propelled by rage and fear, knocking him just enough off balance that his grip loosened. Madison gasped for air, rolling away as Rebecca joined the effort, striking Collins with a heavy glass vase that shattered against his shoulder. Chaos erupted as the front door burst open, federal agents pouring in with weapons drawn, shouting commands. Collins was subdued in seconds, face pressed to the floor as he was handcuffed, still bellowing threats and accusations. Madison sat up slowly, her vision clearing. She found Sophia standing beside her, small hand extended. Madison took it gratefully, pulling herself to her feet as Prosecutor Warren entered, surveying the scene with sharp eyes. "I specifically told you not to come here," Warren said to Madison, though there was a hint of reluctant admiration in her voice. "If she hadn't, he might have killed us both," Rebecca said, one arm protectively around Sophia's shoulders. Warren nodded, then knelt to Sophia's level. "Hello, Sophia. I'm Diane. We found your mother tonight. She's safe." Sophia's eyes grew wide. For a moment, she seemed unable to process the words. Then, in a small, hopeful voice, "My mama is coming?" "Yes," Warren confirmed. "She's with doctors now being checked over, but she's asking for you." Tears filled Sophia's eyes. The first Madison had ever seen from the stoic child. Not tears of fear or anger, but of pure, overwhelming joy. As Collins was led away, still shouting about corporate interests and betrayal, Warren approached Madison privately. The team at the cabin found Elena just in time. Collins had arranged for her to be moved offshore tonight, somewhere beyond our jurisdiction. Another hour and we might never have found her. Madison's hand went to her throat, still tender from Collins's grip. When can Sophia see her mother? We're bringing Elena here now, Warren said. I thought a reunion in a hospital might be too institutional, after what they've both been through. Outside, more vehicles arrived, medical personnel, additional agents. Rebecca gave her statement to investigators, her voice steady as she detailed everything she knew, everything her husband had done. And Madison stood at the edge of it all, watching as the house became a flurry of activity. She had kept her promise to Sophia. Whatever happened next, custody arrangements, legal proceedings, corporate fallout, at least tonight, a child would be reunited with her mother. A wrong would begin to be made right. The wooden bird still sat in her pocket. She approached Sophia, who stood by the window watching the road with unwavering intensity. I have something for you, Madison said softly. From your mother. Sophia's small hand closed around the carved bird. Her eyes filled with fresh tears as she recognized it instantly. She never stopped looking for you, Madison told her, and you never stopped believing in her. Headlights appeared on the road leading to the house. Sophia pressed her hand to the glass. The wooden bird clutched tightly in her fingers. Mama, she whispered, Mama is coming. 6 months later, Madison parked outside the small apartment complex on the east side of the city. The building was nothing special, beige stucco and basic amenities, but the flower pots lining the second-floor walkway added a touch of life and color. She checked her appearance in the rearview mirror, smoothing her hair nervously. Today wasn't just any visit. Today was important. Madison climbed the stairs to apartment 2C and knocked. The door flew open almost instantly. Madison! Sophia launched herself forward, wrapping thin arms around Madison's waist. You came. The transformation in the child was nothing short of miraculous. Gone was the silent, rigid girl from the Collins house. This Sophia was animated, her eyes bright, her voice clear and confident. Of course I came, Madison said, returning the hug. I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything. Elena Petrov appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. 6 months of freedom had restored her health, if not erased all traces of her ordeal. She was still thin, with shadows beneath her eyes that might never fully disappear, but her smile was warm and genuine. Madison, she greeted, her accent softening the name. Come in, please. We have cake soon. The apartment was modest, but made cozy through evident care. Handmade curtains, walls covered with Sophia's artwork, bookshelves filled with both English and Moldovan titles. On the coffee table sat a carved wooden chess set, Elena's handiwork during her months of captivity, now serving a happier purpose. Sophia tugged Madison toward a small table covered with construction paper, markers, and glue. I'm making thank you cards, she explained, for everyone who helped us. Madison examined the colorful creations. Each card featured Sophia's distinctive drawing style, no more women behind bars, but bright images of houses, flowers, and smiling figures holding hands. They're beautiful, Madison said sincerely. Elena brought coffee and joined them. The prosecutor says Michael's trial starts next month, she said quietly, while Sophia returned to her artwork. They want both of us to testify. Madison nodded. The case against Michael Collins had expanded far beyond the initial charges. Investigators had uncovered a pattern of corporate corruption, environmental violations, and human rights abuses spanning multiple countries. Several TRD executives had already taken plea deals, implicating Collins in exchange for leniency. Will that be difficult for Sophia? Madison asked. Elena's eyes drifted to her daughter. She is stronger than anyone knows, but yes, it will be hard. She sipped her coffee. Rebecca visits us every week. She has been unexpectedly kind. That had been the most surprising development in the aftermath, rather than disappearing from their lives in shame or guilt. Rebecca Collins had fought to maintain a connection with Sophia, not as a mother, but as a friend, a supportive adult who genuinely cared for her well-being. After her divorce from Michael, she had even helped Elena find work and this apartment, using her connections in ways that actually helped people for a change. A knock at the door announced Rebecca's arrival. She entered bearing a wrapped gift and a store-bought cake, still uncertain in her role but determined to be present. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "Traffic was terrible." Any awkwardness dissolved when Sophia greeted her with the same enthusiasm she'd shown Madison. The adults exchanged glances over the child's head, a moment of mutual recognition. Whatever complicated feelings existed between Elena and Rebecca, they were secondary to Sophia's happiness. As they gathered around the small kitchen table to sing Happy Birthday, Madison marveled at the unlikely family they'd become: a Moldovan activist, her resilient daughter, an American woman whose life had been built on unwitting privilege, and Madison herself, a student who'd stumbled into an international conspiracy while simply trying to do her job well. After cake and presents, Sophia insisted on showing Madison her room. The walls were covered with new drawings, colorful scenes of her life in Moldova, her mother's activism, their separation, and finally their reunion. It was a visual chronicle of trauma processed, a story being reclaimed. "My therapist says drawing helps," Sophia explained, matter-of-factly. "And I'm writing a book, too, about what happened to us." "That's amazing," Madison said, genuinely impressed by the child's resilience. Sophia pulled a familiar coloring book from her shelf, the one that had started everything. She flipped to the back, to a page Madison had never seen. It showed 4 female figures holding hands in a circle.
"This is you,"
Sophia pointed to one figure. "And my mom and Rebecca and me, my family now." Tears pricked Madison's eyes. "It's perfect, Sophia." Later, as the birthday celebration wound down, Elena walked Madison to her car. "She still has nightmares," Elena confided. "So do I. What they did to us, it doesn't disappear." Madison nodded. "But you're together. You're rebuilding." "Yes." Elena's gaze turned thoughtful. "The prosecutor tells me that our case has opened investigations into other adoptions connected to TRD projects around the world. Other children who may have been separated from parents who opposed the company." "That's incredible," Madison said. "Your story might help reunite other families." Elena reached for Madison's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Our story. Without you, I would still be in that cabin. Sophia would still be silent. Some evils depend on people looking away, saying nothing." Her eyes were fierce with conviction. "You did not look away." As Madison drove home, she thought about her childhood psychology classes, about how trauma could destroy or transform. Sophia and Elena carried wounds that might never fully heal, but they also carried each other, and the knowledge that their suffering had exposed a greater injustice. Madison's phone buzzed with a text. A photo from today's party, Sophia beaming between her mother and Rebecca, Madison beside them, all 4 smiling despite everything that had happened, or perhaps because of it. Beneath the photo, Sophia had typed, "My family now." Some happy endings weren't about erasing the pain, but about finding purpose in it, about building something new from the broken pieces, about turning silence into a voice that could change the world. That's the end of the story. If you were Madison, would you have gone to the cabin alone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit subscribe for more powerful stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. More unforgettable stories are waiting for you to discover.